Hi, I'm Renee Ng, and welcome to In Focus California, the show where we examine the issues that matter to you. We talk to lawmakers, community organizers, and residents who shape the policies that affect your life. Today, our topic is human trafficking. It's a modern-day form of slavery. Every year, millions of men, women, and children are trafficked around the world, mostly in one of two ways: exploited for sex through prostitution or forced into labor. UNICEF estimates 21 million people are trafficked around the globe each year. 80% are women, half are children. And when it comes to child victims, California has some of the highest traffic areas in the U.S. Los Angeles, San Francisco, and San Diego, according to the FBI. Here in Southern California, the LA Regional Human Trafficking Task Force is the largest in the nation. It's led by the LA County Sheriff's Department and the Coalition to Abolish Slavery and Trafficking, or CAST. Members of the task force spoke just days ago about recent accomplishments.
During these 3 days, the collaborative effort could not have been stronger. Social workers, victim advocates, and victim service providers worked hand in hand with federal, state, and local law enforcement to reach trafficking victims and put them on a path to a brighter future. Our 2019 operation yielded significant results. 34 adults were rescued, 14 children were rescued, 36 suspected traffickers and exploiters were arrested.
Joining me now to shed light on human trafficking is Tika Thornton, a sex trafficking survivor and victim advocate, Lieutenant Scott Akin from the Human Trafficking Bureau at the LA County Sheriff's Department, and Laverne Delgado-Small. She's Executive Director of freedomandfashion.org, a nonprofit that helps survivors of the sex trade. Thank you all for joining me today.
Thank you.
I would love to start off with you, Tika. Tell me about how you got lured into sex trafficking.
Well, I come from a family of a lot of trauma, a lot of undiagnosed mental health issues, and my trauma basically started before the trafficking started. My father got caught up in the drug epidemic. My mom had undiagnosed mental health issues, and because of that, I didn't feel loved. I felt neglected. And so there was a lot of abuse in the home at the time as well. And I was suicidal.
Wow.
And instead of me taking my own life, I wandered the streets, and a man found me. And at first he was very nice and kind, and I'm thinking that crazy people don't have nice smiles, don't talk to you in a pleasant way, which I found out was totally false. That very first time that I met him, he drugged me and then sold me into a life of human trafficking.
And when you were more or less captive in that lifestyle, did you ever try to fight or run away or make attempts to do that?
I tried to fight once I came to, after the drugs wore off, and I noticed the more that I fought, the more abuse. So I decided not to fight and just let things happen, just so the violence could stop.
And my understanding is some victims do get attached to their abusers or pimps. Did that happen to you?
No, it was basically survival for me. I started in human trafficking when I was 12 years old, and so my understanding was a little bit different than a lot of other girls that start out at an older age, or that are looking for someone, or that was groomed into human trafficking. I wasn't really groomed into it. I was basically forced into it.
So Laverne and Lieutenant Akin, hearing her story, how common or how typical is that? And I'll start with you.
It's quite typical, and there's several different ways to get into the sex trafficking trade. There's coercion. There's even some young children in the suburbs. Wow. that may be attracted to the dangerous, the seduction of the danger of getting into the practice. Oftentimes the victims are preyed upon in the system, in your group homes, foster care, the probation system. So there's.
You mentioned coercion. Are they? Can you clarify that? Are they literally forced into these kids?
Some are forced.
Okay.
Have been forced. Some are coerced, some are looking for love that sometimes pimps provide that they've never had in their lifetime before. You know, whether it be from a broken family or just being in the system since a young age. You know, so that is the allurement for many young girls, and then they fall under a spell, if you will, of their pimp. And that's where their sole source of love comes from. And even though they're being exploited physically and made to have sex with other people, they consider the pimp their boyfriend, their love interest.
And the traffickers, who are they? Who are the people doing this?
We're seeing a lot of gang members, you know, and we're also seeing maybe even supplanting drug dealing from the 80s and 90s, where human trafficking is now more lucrative.
Why can't someone just leave? They just walk away?
For one, it's all they know, survival, as Tika pointed out. There's no other life skills that they have. Again, some may not want to leave it. When we take a juvenile out of the sex trade, we consider that a rescue. We don't call that an arrest. We attempted to rescue a 15-year-old who was working the streets several months ago, only to be bitten and spat upon by her.
Wow.
We're there to rescue her, yet she considers us the enemy. You know, that's some of that, maybe some brainwashing aspects too. So.
And Laverne, tell me a little bit about your organization and how you help survivors.
Yes, we partner with organizations all around town who rescue and rehabilitate, and we come in during like the final stages to help them gain confidence, life skills, to really help them rehabilitate and like create, you know, like new job skills so they can get into a different field. And we utilize fashion and beauty and some other things as well, but that's our main source of training is creativity, right? So we're really just privileged to be able to kind of partner with a lot of different kinds of organizations in town, and exactly what he's saying. Some of the students that we've served have been, you know, 11 years old, and they were actually being sold and trafficked by their family members here in Los Angeles. But it's happening everywhere, and freedom in fashion is you know, very accessible. It's a really easy way for these young women and girls to access some of the deeper parts of that this issue kind of stems from, and we address the identity stuff, and we use creativity to help create a new, really ignite imagination and teach them to dream again.
And you mentioned that some of the victims that have come through, it was their family members that sold them. Mm-hmm. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, I mean, one girl comes to mind. Obviously, I can't say her name. She's still a minor, but 11 years old. Her grandma, they lived in a really poor part of town, and her grandma sold her because she was the main source of income for the family, right? So the lights turned on and food was on the table because they sold their granddaughter.
And why did you decide to get involved in this type of work?
I've always had a heart for those who have been sexually abused. I've been sexually abused when I was younger by family members, so it's kind of like ironic, right? So I have a pulse for this issue because I know what it's like to live with the trauma and the baggage that comes with it, right?
And going back to you, Tika, how did you recover emotionally from that experience?
When you've had suffering most of your life, like I said, coming from a marginalized community where there was a lot of, it was just a toxic environment. So when you come from that, you learn how to recover and to adapt to certain situations. It wasn't until I was 33 years old, I want to say about 6 years ago, I started to go to therapy because I started to learn that therapy isn't there to fix you. It's there to help you cope with things that have happened and cope with things that will happen in the future. And once I did that, I started to look at things a lot differently. And then I also started to really break down everything that happened in my life by doing a lot of reading, doing a lot of research, and just really being real with myself and looking at myself in the mirror and saying, you are worthy of being loved, of being happy. And once I made that promise to myself, it was all up road from there.
Children in the foster care system. I understand that there are large numbers of children in the system that are being trafficked. Can you tell me what's being done to help keep them out of harm's way?
Being in the foster care system, again, I think you don't necessarily have the love of biological family members, so that makes them easily preyed upon. They're going to go outside of that environment to seek the love that they're not getting in the foster home. And I'm not casting dispersions on anybody that's running foster homes or that sort of thing, but the fact of the matter is, sometimes for some of those caregivers, it is purely a business.
And in terms of the people that that you find have been rescued from trafficking situations, how do they end up finding your organization or getting help?
Right, yeah, so we always partner with friends and partner organizations that are doing this. Depending on who you ask, there's multiple stages in the rescue to rehabilitation process, and we, as mentioned, are in the final stages. So we always partner with people in town who are doing an excellent job at rescuing and housing and getting their survival needs met, right? Food, shelter, water, clothing. And once they are in that safe environment and they their defenses are down a little bit, it's now secure and safe for us to go in, and they can start retaining new information. They can start learning a new skill and it actually be helpful. The timing is very strategic. It can't be done prematurely, and we have to meet. It's very vital and important that we partner with the organizations in town that are doing their jobs to make sure that we come in and support. And it really is, it takes hundreds of people to ensure that one survivor makes it, into a life of healing and love, and just not only for themselves, but being an active contributor to society, something that they want. It takes hundreds of people to get them there, and we're just one part of the process.
And you're also another part of the process. I understand you're a victim advocate, and why did you decide to choose that line of work?
I didn't choose the work chose me. I had went through a couple different programs to get me prepared for us career-wise. And after I graduated from an organization called Two Wings Academy, I then went on an interview for Journey Out. I didn't really know too much about them until the day of the interview, when I looked at their website and really understood not just what they do, but their mission behind why they're doing it. We used to be the Mary Magdalene project, and we were around for, I want to say, 30 plus years. And they had a house for victims of human trafficking and for women that were engaged in sex work. And when I met with our ED, Dr. Stephanie Powell, she just really made an impact on my life just at that very moment, because she's a retired LAPD sergeant from the mission station in the Valley. And she told me exactly what it is that she needed, and what the program, or what my job description would be. And I was ready for it. I knew that being a survivor and actually going through the things that I went through, I can identify with the women can identify with me. Wow. Because we come from the same neighborhoods. We have the similar backgrounds at times, or we just know the struggles of being in the life. And it's one of the most life-changing things that I've ever done, because I'm able to use my pain as purpose.
And for someone that is in a trafficking situation now, what would you say to them?
Don't give up. It's going to be okay. It might be hard now, but once you're ready, we're here for you. All you have to do is call us up, and we just try and plant the seed. As long as they know that we're here and that we care for them, and if they're not ready now, they can still contact us until they are ready to go through the process of recovery.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your story, and thank